Our shirt on Teespring.
Fox News has mentioned critical race theory 300 times in less than 4 months. Why? Because critical race theory, CRT, has become a new bogeyman for people unwilling to acknowledge our country's racist history and how it impacts the present. To understand why CRT has become such a flashpoint in the culture, it is important to understand what it is and what it is not. Opponents fear that CRT admonishes all white people for being oppressors while classifying all black people as hopelessly oppressed victims. However, there is a fundamental problem. These narratives about CRT are gross exaggerations of the theoretical framework. The broad brush that is being applied to CRT is puzzling to academics, including some of the scholars who coined and advanced the framework. CRT does not attribute racism to white people as individuals or even to entire groups of people. Simply put, critical race theory states that U.S. social institutions, e.g., the criminal justice system, education system, labor market, housing market, and healthcare system, are laced with racism embedded in laws, regulations, rules, and procedures that lead to differential outcomes by race. Sociologists and other scholars have long noted that racism can exist without racists. However, many Americans are not able to separate their individual identity as an American from the social institutions that govern us. These people perceive themselves as the system. Consequently, they interpret calling social institutions racist as calling them racist personally. There are also people who may recognize America's racist past, but have bought into the false narrative that the U.S. is now an equitable democracy. They are simply unwilling to remove the blind spot obscuring the fact that America is still not great for everyone. Scholars and activists who discuss CRT are not arguing that white people living now are to blame for what people did in the past. They are saying that white people living now have a moral responsibility to do something about how racism still impacts all of our lives today. Policies attempting to suffocate this much-needed national conversation are an obstacle to the pursuit of an equitable democracy. Supporters of CRT bans often quote Martin Luther King Jr.'s proclamation that individuals should be viewed by the content of their character instead of the color of their skin, ignoring the context of the quote and the true meaning behind it. If we love America, we should want it to be the best it can be. Rather than run from the issue of racism in America, we should confront it head-on. 9 states, Idaho, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Arizona, and North Dakota have passed legislation. Arizona's legislation was overturned in November by the Arizona Supreme Court. None of the state bills that have passed even actually mention the words critical race theory explicitly, with the exception of Idaho and North Dakota. The legislations mostly ban the discussion, training, and/or orientation that the U.S. is inherently racist, as well as any discussions about conscious and unconscious bias, privilege, discrimination, and oppression. These parameters also extend beyond race to include gender lectures and discussions. State actors in Montana and South Dakota have denounced teaching concepts associated with CRT. The state school boards in Florida, Georgia, Utah, and Alabama introduced new guidelines barring CRT-related discussions. Local school boards in Georgia, North Carolina, Kentucky, and Virginia also criticized CRT. Nearly 20 additional states have introduced or plan to introduce similar legislation. Elisha Brand leads a crowd of angry parents and community members in the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner after a Loudoun County School Board meeting was halted by the school board because the crowd refused to quiet down in Ashburn, Virginia, U.S. June 22, 2021. Why? Because the culture war over CRT has moved from think tanks to classrooms and boardrooms. Some parents are worried about their kids learning things in school that they do not have the capacity to address. As a college professor who does teach CRT as one of the many theoretical frameworks that I bring into the classroom, students are alarmed by how little they have learned about inequality. They are upset at their schools, teachers, and even their parents. So this is the conundrum. Teachers in K-12 schools are not actually teaching CRT, but teachers are trying to respond to students asking them why people are protesting and why black people are more likely to be killed by the police. The approach of some Republican-led state legislatures is a method for continuing to roll back racial progress regarding everything from voting rights to police reform. Laws forbidding any teacher or lesson from mentioning race, racism, and even gender sexism would put a chilling effect on what educators are willing to discuss in the classroom and provide cover for those who are not comfortable hearing or telling the truth about the history and state of race relations in the United States. Ironically, making laws outlawing critical race theory confirms the point that racism is embedded in the law, as sociologist Victor Ray noted. Ultimately, we cannot employ colorblind ideology in a society that is far from colorblind. If we love America, we should want it to be the best it can be. Rather than run from the issue of racism in America, we should confront it head-on. Our kids and country will be better for it.